This video is an introduction to navigating around the hills using paper maps supplemented where needed by a compass. Navigating by paper maps is only one of several methods of finding your way around the hills. The other methods are outlined in my Finding Your Way Around the Hills video. There are three broad approaches to navigating with paper maps. I'll introduce each in turn. Imagine you want to walk from the car park to the lake. You study the map and decide to take the route shown here. You plan to find your way to the lake by following the track, forest edge and river. In navigation jargon, you'll use the track, forest edge and river as handrails. You can use anything as a handrail that fulfills all four of these criteria. It's long, it's going in roughly the right direction, it's shown on the map, and it's identifiable in real life. Following handrails is a very common method of navigating. For example, when using a paper map in a city, or when following instructions such as second left turn and then first right, you are using streets as handrails. Many hill walking routes include long sections which follow the crest of a ridge. Such crests can be useful as handrails. However, while features such as forest edges and rivers can be used as handrails whether you're in bright sunshine or dense mist, that's not true of all ridges. The crest of this ridge is relatively narrow. In all but the worst mist, if you are standing in the center of this ridge, you'd be able to see where the sides slope down to the right and where they slope down to the left. That would tell you where the crest was, thus allowing you to use the crest as a handrail. But that might not be possible if the mist was denser or the ridge was wider. If you're in mist without a handrail, you need to use a compass. I'll talk about compasses shortly. Even where the ridge seems narrow enough to use as a handrail, I look at the compass occasionally to check that the ridge was still leading you in the right direction. Let's imagine that you've used your map reading skills to identify the next hill on your route. There are no handrails leading to it, but it's a fine day and you can clearly see the hill. Once you've definitively identified the hill, put the map away. Pick out the best route to your objective by looking at the ground between you and it. As you can see, if you went in a straight line, you'd drop down much more than needed and then have to regain all that lost height. To avoid that, you'd probably pick a route like this. Follow it by looking at the actual ground and not at the map nor the compass. In this example, the route curves around to avoid unnecessary height loss and subsequent height gain. In other cases, you might curve around to avoid obstacles such as a small cliff or patches of dense gorse. Here's another scenario. You've identified the next mountain on your route. There's a lake and some scrappy cliffs between you and it. To avoid them, you plan to start your ascent of the mountain at point A and to follow the dotted red line from there. However, there's a problem. Some of the ground between you and point A is hidden from your view. You can't see whether that hidden ground is safe like this or dangerously steep like this. Look at what the map tells you about that hidden ground. Does it indicate that a reasonably straight route across it to point A would be both a safe and sensible route? Assuming the answer is yes, put the map away and start walking towards point A. When you reach a point from which you can see the hidden ground, study it and work out the best route across it. If, however, a straight line to point A would be unsafe or unwise, study the map and work out an alternative way of getting to the top of your chosen hill. In both these examples, you choose a mountaintop as your next objective. But you could equally have chosen a car park, a stream junction, or a mountain pass. You could have chosen any convenient thing that was on your route, provided it was both visible from a distance and shown on your map. As this approach relies on seeing things in the distance, clearly it doesn't work in mist. Imagine you're on top of Slieve and this is all you can see. You want to get to your car, which is parked at the bridge. To avoid the cliff, you plan to go to the lake and to use the stream as a handrail from there to the bridge. But how will you find your way to the lake? You can't see it. There are no suitable handrails. This means that you can't use either of the two approaches I've just described. In situations like this, you'll have to use a compass. The basic principle is as follows. Look at the map and work out the compass direction you need to follow. In this case, it's east. Look at the magnetic needle on your compass. It points north. Use that to work out where east is. Start walking east. Check your compass regularly to make sure you're still going the right way. Keep walking till you reach the lake. The approach I've just described is a simplistic way to use a compass. It'll probably work if you're heading for something big like the lake in this example. However, it won't work if you're heading for something small or more distant. That's why you need to learn a technique called taking and following a bearing. It's based on the exact same principles as the approach I've just outlined here, but it's a little bit more complex and a lot more accurate. One of my videos will teach it. You have three choices, namely handrails, distant visible features, or compass bearings. The right choice depends on whether there are any handrails and whether the visibility is good enough to see distant visible features. This table shows which approach to choose. It can be tempting to learn just one approach and then to use that same approach every single time. Fight this dangerous temptation. The wrong approach may work when the navigation is simple, but you can't rely on the wrong approach working when matters get more tricky. Eventually, you will land up in a situation where your safety depends on using an approach you haven't yet learnt. You'll then be in serious trouble. Each of these three approaches requires various skills and techniques. For example, when navigating by visible distant feature, you'll often have to be good at counter reading in order to identify the feature. Think about the type of walks you do and that you plan to do, and then ask yourself whether your skills are adequate for those walks. And also ask, will they still be adequate if things turned out worse than expected? If you've any doubts about this, firstly consider being more cautious in your choice of walks. Secondly, work harder at developing your skills. And finally, consider bringing GPS as a backup. The good news is that many people get a great sense of achievement, firstly from learning these skills, and secondly from successfully applying them. I'll finish with some of the key points from the video